is the best armed non-state actor in the world, as far as I know. It is a completely different kettle of fish from Hamas. And actually, as you say, Iran itself is a state and has considerable armed forces. Of course it does. And therefore, to bring this on means that they want to drag everybody in the Middle East into a war. I fear for the people of Lebanon, who are already suffering airstrikes in Beirut and in the south of the country. I fear for what is going to happen in the Middle East. And we're here today to say that has to be stopped.
No, I asked Ibrahim here the same question. I'm going to ask it to you. We're now 1 month into a new government here in Britain led by Sir Keir Starmer. What's your opinion of how that's performed?
I think Starmer has performed exactly as I thought he would do. He is absolutely behind the Americans and behind Israel. They've made a few concessions over Israel, but nothing that is really fundamental. And the truth is, David Lammy has got absolutely no alternative in the Middle East but backing Israel, and that is going to end in catastrophe. As well as that, their policies at home, including attacking the fuel allowance for pensioners, which they've now just got rid of completely unjustifiably. This is going to cause more and more division in this country. We've seen the far right are growing here. We've seen they're growing. They're trying to take advantage of things like the terrible killing in Southport. And Starmer will have policies which do make it easier for them to build, and we have to be against that as well. So the message today is several issues going on. Stop arming Israel, ceasefire now, no Middle East war, but also we've got to stop the rise of fascism and of Islamophobia.
Lindsay Sherman, convener of Stop the War Coalition, thank you very much indeed. As you can see, we're now at the very front of the demonstration. I think we're going to try and talk to Ben Jamal, who's chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. We'll see who else is here. I did see John Rees, a good friend, and in fact he's over here. So let's go and talk to John. And here's an old friend of Islam Channel, John Rees. John, welcome. This is, I think, the 16th or 17th demonstration?
Yeah,
17th,
yeah.
17th demonstration. I mean, this is fairly incredible. We've not seen the likes of this in British history, have we?
No, I mean, the intensity of the mobilisation, the length of time that these have been going on, the scale of each mobilisation, this is going in the history books, no question.
No, it's also taking place against the background 1 month in of a new Labour government. We saw Labour take a hit in that election, even though it won. Even 5 independents were elected, but I mean, even in Sir Keir Starmer's constituency, the vote went down. I mean, we've never seen the likes of this before, have we?
No, and it's very important that the government thinks through this. Of course, there'll be a certain arrogance that they assume because of the scale of the majority that they have in the House of Commons, but that isn't reflected and wasn't reflected in the proportion of the votes that they got in the general election. And we're already beginning to see those chickens coming home to roost, because have a look at where the 35 far-right demonstrations are this weekend. Blackpool, Wrexham, Dover. These are places that Labour has left behind, where Reform was able to step in and gather votes from people who are very, very disenchanted with the political and economic system in this country. And so what's happening is that there's a polarisation. Yeah, there were 5 independent pro-Palestinian MPs elected, but there are also 5 Reform MPs selected. And what is happening in this country is that there's a race between the far right and the progressive left on international policy and on domestic policy about who will best be able to represent those people.
Now, in the United States, we've seen Joe Biden pushed to the side. We've seen Kamala Harris come in as the Democratic nominee for president. Do you expect there to be any change in American policy towards Israel?
No, not really. I mean, there may be some change in the rhetoric. I think what Kamala Harris has decided to do is, to a certain extent, to pitch left, to not just ignore the voter base of the Democrats in the way that Biden was obviously doing. So you might have some different rhetoric during the course of the election, but US policy towards Israel has never changed from the day of Israel's foundation to the present day. The fundamentals will stay in place.
John Rees, thank you very much. Let's see who else we can find here. We've come over this way. And one of the main organisers of the demonstrations is the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. We've been talking to other people. I mean, this demonstration is taking place, Kate Hudson, I should say, CEO of the CND, it's taking place at a particularly dangerous time. We've seen the assassination of Hamas's chief negotiator in Tehran. We've seen the attacks against Hezbollah, leading Hezbollah figures in Beirut. Israel seems intent on extending this war.
Yeah, that's the most shocking thing, really. We're already seeing this absolutely terrible, terrible genocide. Yet while that is going on, in the eyes of the world, when the overwhelming majority of the world is against it and all legal institutions against it, they're now turning, as you say, it seems like they are trying to provoke war with their neighbours. And of course, one of the things that I would say, from the point of view of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, is that it's Israel's possession of nuclear weapons that is absolutely fundamental here, because possession of those, the only nuclear weapon state in the Middle East, means that they can act with impunity, because people, other countries, which may feel that they wish to respond to Israeli attacks, they will think twice or more than twice about responding militarily to military attacks on them, because they know that Israel has that ultimate nuclear weapon, and indeed they talk about using it. So that nuclear weapons possession gives Israel impunity to act how it wants in that region.
Now, I've heard a number of former CIA officers and others in the United States saying that they believe if Israel went to Lebanon, they would use tactical nuclear weapons. Now, these are still weapons of mass destruction, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's no such thing as tactical nuclear weapons. What that to mean is that they are small nuclear weapons that can be limited in some way. That is absolute nonsense. All nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction. And in fact, in terms of the size category of those weapons, most tactical nuclear weapons are many times the size of the Hiroshima bomb. Their payload is massive. So there is no such thing as a small, usable nuclear weapon. And all those military planners and CIA commentators, they have to understand that, because any bomb, nuclear weapon of any size in that area will be a catastrophe for the whole region, an absolute catastrophe, and for the wider world, because radiation poisoning spreads.
Now, we're 4 weeks into a new government here in Britain, the Labour government, Sir Keir Starmer. How do you rate their performance 4 weeks in?
Well, obviously they've made one or two positive steps. There's the funding for the United Nations agency, and they've also stopped the kind of plan to block the legal thing, the arrest thing around Netanyahu. So those are positive steps. But the overwhelming majority of what they need to do has not yet been addressed. They need to stop those arms shipments to Israel. I mean, yesterday or the day before, Lamy and Healy, two top ministers, they were in the Middle East, and they were saying, apparently, it was reported, they were saying there has to be a ceasefire. This has to stop. Yet at the same time, Gantz was tweeting saying, had a great discussion with Healy, they recognise Israel's right to self-defence, and where's the ending of the arms sales? Where is the ending of those weapons going? Because if they're serious about wanting to end the genocide, serious about wanting a ceasefire in Gaza, they have to stop sending weapons to the killers. It's simple.
I mean, they did promise they would publish the legal advice to the government on the legality of selling these weapons. Where's that gone?
Have you?
No, I haven't seen it.
Exactly. So these, a couple of small steps, good, tick, but there is so much more they have to do, and anything else is just hypocrisy and doublespeak. You can't go there to the genocide, and actually you're still sending the weapons.
Kate Hudson from CND, thank you very much. We're now going to be joined by a French MP from the Insommet, which was part of the Nouvelle Popular Front Populaire, who did so well in the elections. Could you just explain to us, Jerome, why was it that the left did so well in those elections?
Pourquoi la gauche a-t-elle si bien marché dans les élections, les dernières élections françaises?
Alors, la gauche, contre toute attente, a eu effectivement un véritable succès parce qu'elle a...
Against all expectation, the left has indeed has a big success in those elections.
Parce qu'elle a mené une campagne sur un programme de rupture avec la politique d'Emmanuel Macron.
because it led its campaign on a program to break with all the policy of Macron.
Macron qui a dissous l'Assemblée nationale au risque de donner le pouvoir à l'extrême droite et au Rassemblement national.
Macron saw the national at the risk of putting the far right and the national rally in power.
Et ça a provoqué dans tout le pays une très forte mobilisation qui a permis, c'est ça qui a permis l'unité de l'ensemble des organisations et des partis politiques de gauche.
In the whole country, it provoked mobilization that helped, that made the left unite and win the elections.
Can I just ask you this? I mean, many people would often say Britain is different from France. We haven't had the far right. What we're seeing here is something quite similar to France. Smaller, deindustrialized towns, low levels of immigrant population are turning to the far right. What drives the Front National in France? What drives
industrialisés à droite
We just seem to have lost the feed there with Chris there, but amazing that he's managed to, in the space of about half an hour, managed to get so many different interviews and voices there. We heard from Kate Hudson from the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. We heard from Ismail Patel from the Friends of Al-Aqsa. We heard from John Rees of Stop the War Coalition and Lindsey Graham of the same organisation. These people who have been involved in the demonstrations, now the 17th demonstration that's been ongoing since this occupation and this war has started on the Gaza Strip. And indeed around the Palestinian territories generally, because we cannot forget the West Bank and what's been happening over there as well. Everyone seems to be of the same opinion. A question was asked in relation to, is there going to be a change in the tide in relation to Labour coming into power? A month in, what's actually happened? There's been some points on the edges, but really there's not been any substance. The form is different slightly, but the substance is still the same. We're going to cut back to Chris Bambury because we want to get those opinions on the ground as much as we can.
in the immigration.
Or, les responsables des problèmes auxquels on est confronté en France, par exemple, ce ne sont pas les immigrés, ce sont les politiques qui sont menées par les gouvernements en place et en particulier par le gouvernement de Macron.
And yet, the roots of the problems of the population are not in the immigrants, but in the policies that are led by the powers in place, beginning with Emmanuel Macron's power.
I mean, we've seen, in this country, we see the establishment, the ruling elite, driving Islamophobia. That seems even more extreme in France, with Macron, Sarkozy. I could go through a list. I mean, Islamophobia in both Britain and France has now become established. It's a sort of respectable form of racism, not just on the far right, but for neoliberal politicians like Macron.
Donc l'establishment en Royaume-Uni a nourri l'islamophobie, mais en France il semble que c'est encore pire et que l'islamophobie est devenue quelque chose de complètement établi par le pouvoir d'Emmanuel Macron.
Absolument. Il y a eu pas moins de 3 lois qui ont été que le pouvoir d'Emmanuel Macron a fait passer et qui désignent comme bouc émissaire, comme cible, une partie de la population française et en particulier la partie musulmane ou supposée musulmane de la population.
That's true. In the recent years, not less than 3 laws have been passed by Emmanuel Macron's government, targeting one part of the population, of the cause of the problems, namely the Muslim part or the supposedly part of the population.
And Insoumis seems to stand out as being the one force in France, one political force standing up to Islamophobia.
On dirait qu'en France, une force s'est opposée à l'islamophobie.
C'est la France insoumise. La France insoumise a dénoncé dès le départ ces mesures qui sont des mesures de discrimination, des mesures racistes pour dresser une partie de la population l'une contre l'autre.
LFI, France and both from the not been fighting these laws, and the fact of putting one part of the population apart from the rest, targeting it.
Ce que nous disons, c'est que nous sommes un peuple, nous sommes un seul peuple, et nous refusons d'être divisés sur des bases qui sont les pires possibles, sur des bases racistes.
What we say is that we are one people, one single people, and we refuse to be dividing along the worst possible lines, racist lines.
Merci bien.
Merci à vous.
Merci. Okay. That's a view from France, and very important that we get that view. And it's interesting to look at the similarities between what's happened in France with the rise of the Front National and what's happening in Britain with the rise of... I saw Ben Jamal over there. Shall we try and secure an interview with him? We're looking at the very front of the demonstration. People, Ben Jamal, the march getting things.
There we got an opinion as well from Chris. Of course, it is a live feed, so you have to always bear with us with regards to the live feeds and as they happen. We will get Chris back, I'm sure, very shortly. But just to summarise again some of the points, it's not just the UK where there has been this rise of the far right, and of course the underlying issue of Gaza that remains very important to all of the people, both on the left and across the board, really. One of the interesting things that was being said there was how they have organised, because of the fact that it seems to be 2 steps ahead on the continent. Everything seems to be working a little bit faster in relation to what the far right are doing and how they have been able to consolidate and coordinate. And so the far left, and so the left have also had to do that. I think we have got Chris back, so we're going to go straight back to Chris and Ben Jamal.
Of this size and this length since the suffragette movement, so it is unprecedented. It looks like at least tens of thousands have turned up, maybe more. But I get asked the question, why are people still marching? And they're not just marching in London, they're demonstrating, they're picketing, they're boycotting across the country. The simple answer is because the genocide is going on, but more and more people are coming to the understanding that this genocide is 76 years of oppression, of apartheid, of oppression, and it's going to take sustained activism to end that.
I mean, this is also, looking around, this is just a reflection of what British society is like in 2024. And it's an answer to the... Isn't
in the case these are Islamists trying everybody.
Again, there we are getting a little bit of feedback there for Chris and Ben Jamal, who was talking. Of course, Ben Jamal is from the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, one of the main organisers of the demonstration today in London. But as we were talking just before we left, we also had the comments from the New Popular Front in France. It was important because those particular opinions show where we potentially could be, seeing what's happened in this last week. We've seen how the far right have been absolutely abhorrent in relation to how they have been dealing with demonstrations, how they have picketed outside mosques, turned over cars. We've had rioting of a grand scale. We've not seen this for a very, very long time in this particular country. And it seems to be a consolidation of those particular policies that have come together. And we've seen those on the continent as well. In fact, on the continent, we've now got to a stage where organisations are mobilising. It's not just the case that I'm on the left dealing with one particular issue. It is the fact that we are having to consolidate as a grouping. And that's what's happened with the left, and it's happened with the far right as well. And that is what's dictating politics right now on the continent. But looking again as to what's happening on the ground in the UK, we can see 35 places where there have been these riots. We've had Blackpool, Wrexham, Dover, Southport, all of these particular areas. It's almost like the forgotten ground, what in the US would be called the Rust Belt as such, but where there is a population that was traditionally a Labour base, which has seen actually the Labour vote fall quite heavily, and instead of going to Labour, it's actually gone to parties like Reform. And so we do see this sea change in opinion, and that is also now playing out into what's happening on the ground in terms of violence that we're seeing. And that feeling of unease amongst community members in those particular areas is increasing. The other thing that we've noticed is, as with organisations of such kind, it's not the people from the local area necessarily that are actually involved in this. There certainly would be some, but this is now more of a coordinated effort of groups coming from one area or another to that particular point, and effectively lighting the touch paper there. We also know, of course, that this remains an issue about Palestine. It is a live Palestine demonstration, and as much as we've talked about the backdrop of what we're having to deal with whilst this demonstration is taking place, we also know that there has been major developments in relation to what's happened in the Middle East over the last week. The targeted murder and killing of an assassination of Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas that took place in Iran is a heightened tension, because many thought that he was the moderate voice of Hamas. So if you're taking out the negotiator, what are you really saying about your ability to negotiate also? So the Israeli state has a lot to answer for in relation to, is it simply looking at increasing the violence for the sake of increasing the violence, or is it trying to do something with an end goal in mind? That simply does not seem to be the case when you are taking such drastic steps and drastic action. And of course, on the other side, we also had the killing of Faud of Hezbollah. And that again is another aggressive act that's taken place by the Israeli state. And so we do need to really consider the wider implications of where this is going in terms of a more conflated regional war. And if there is a conflated regional war, then what are the aspects that we have to be aware of? And we got a very interesting opinion a little earlier from Kate Hudson. And obviously Kate has been part of the campaign for nuclear disarmament for some time. And her point was absolutely paramount, is that Israel remains the only state in the Middle East and in that region that has nuclear weapons. It always has denied that it has nuclear weapons, but it's an open secret that it does have those particular nuclear weapons. And when it talks about its plans, and it has been stated both by Chris and by Kate Hudson there, that there might be what's called a targeted use of, or strategic use of nuclear weapons. That can never really be the case. You can't have bombs that are twice the size, or many times the size of what we saw in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in our history books and on the TV. You can't have that in a targeted way. The fallout of radiation, the fallout of all kinds of death and destruction that would occur as a result of using such bombs is completely unjustified. It cannot be that you use such bombs. I mean, we're talking about issues that in World War II, which we saw, where there was a targeted effect of bombing on civilian populations, we said never again, because you're not meant to bomb civilian populations. It should be common sense. I mean, Voltaire says common sense is not so common, and I think that's one of the things that we've really seen in this particular instant and this particular bombing campaign, is that there has been no discrimination in relation to what is a military target and what is civilian populations. Where you look at 35,000, well, that's the estimated figure at the time, that there still was an ability to actually take down names, take down information, take down details of actual individuals and comment on who they were and give a dictated, effectively a record for us to use. Where you don't have that anymore because the health authority has been completely decimated, where you had at the beginning of the war people saying that, you know what, we don't target hospitals, it's not us. And then a few months down the line, there is no longer a working hospital in Gaza, from 27 down to none. It's a very, very harrowing fact that actually civilian populations are being targeted. There's more than likely more than 35,000 deaths. In fact, we know that there was at least an estimated 10,000 deaths that was as a result of people being left under the rubble. Some estimates in the Lancet have put that figure down to 108,000 actual Palestinian deaths, which is an absolutely massive, mind-boggling figure. Think of an entire football stadium, two football stadiums full of people, all killed, all decimated. That's the kind of numbers that we're looking at. So when we are looking at these demonstrations and when we are looking at what people are doing and why they're doing it, we can understand the feeling and the fervour of why they want to stop this from continuing and want to stop this immediately. And then it brings us on to our next stage. If we are going to stop it, who do we have in power to be able to do that? We thought at July the 4th there might be a slight change with regards to the Labour government coming into power. And a question was asked by Chris Bambury in relation to all of the guests that he's been talking to. And remember, within 20 to 30 minutes, he was able to get so many great guests. I mean, we had Kate Hudson, Ismail Patel from the Friends of Al-Aqsa, John Rees, Lindsay German, both from Stop the War Coalition and the Nouvelle Popular Front. We had all of those particular commentaries that came in. And one of the questions that John asked was in relation to Labour. What exactly is it that the Labour government has done in this 1 month? And what we found is that the answer was not much. What we have is a situation where on the side and the periphery, we have a few token gestures, which were always going to happen anyway because of where we are positioned. And other than that, the continued sale, the continued disclosure of information that would let people make an informed decision. For example, is it legal to sell weapons to Israel? That legal advice and that legal point was very important. So where you've got that kind of legal advice that's being withheld from the public, it seems to suggest that there is something untoward in relation to what has been going on. And it is, as journalists, we'd want to have that information to be able to make an informed decision. Indeed, the rest of the general public would want that information to make that informed decision. Because we know that if that information was to come out and to say that it was illegal, as a lot of legal commentators outside of the government have said already, that it is illegal to sell arms to Israel in the way in which they're being used. For example, if a company is benefiting from putting putting gas lines in Gaza as a result of knowing that what they are doing is causing human rights issues, human rights abuses, that effectively could invalidate those particular contracts that they hold, and they could be liable for knowingly doing this. And of course, the sale of those particular arms that then go on to kill individuals and civilians, knowing that they are going to kill individuals and civilians, that again would normally constitute a massive breach of international law. So where the Labour government has failed to do anything is in its substance. It's been very high on its form in relation to what it would like to say and suggest it wants to do, but those platitudes, I think people are getting very tired of. People are getting tired of the fact that they're being told, yes, we know it needs to stop, but even though we've got the power to do something about it, we're not going to do it. This is the point, is that there are certain steps that can be taken. There is the fact that we don't have to contribute to the mass slaughter of so many individuals, so many citizens. What the ICJ has considered is a palpable case of genocide. And indeed, the further rulings that came from the ICJ and the ICC earlier in July also confirmed the fact of what is going on in the ground is potentially a genocide. The illegal settlements that continue to be put forward, the way in which Palestinians in the West Bank are being treated, the increase in numbers of prisoners actually detained without trial, children detained without trial in prisons, the horror stories that we are hearing in relation to prisoners that are coming out of prison with horrific stories. This is torture on a scale that we have not seen. This is not like Iraq. This is not like any of those other conflicts that have gone before, because of the fact that this is now personal testimony coming out from people. I mean, we've seen the pictures. We've seen these pictures of these big burly men in gyms, looking $1 million in relation to how they were before, and then we see the withered state of some of these individuals that have come out of these prisons. The stark contrast, the juxtaposition of what was happening, of what was one life to what is now the new reality. We can't get away from those particular questions because they're in front of us. And the politicians can't get away from that either. What we really need to do is understand how we hold them to account. This demonstration is one of those examples. So what we have is effectively the 17th demonstration that is now taking place as a national demonstration. It's unheard of, it's unprecedented. Each demonstration having hundreds of thousands, if not, at one point there was a demonstration with over 1 million. When you have those kinds of numbers coming in every 2 weeks, that is historic, and it will be written in history in relation to what was being done at this time. It's fearful. I'm very fearful, actually, of a lot of the politicians that we see today, because their names will be going down in history. Their names will be going down in relation to this is what was a common right and this is what was a common wrong. And what did you do when you were empowered and being able to do something about it? You didn't do anything. We are going to try and get, like I said, Chris Bambury again a little later to be able to get more views on the ground. But it's just a summary of some of those particular points. We do have to give credit to the Labour Party, I suppose, for some of the things it has done just recently in relation to reinstating the funding of UNRWA, and, of course, recognising that Benjamin Netanyahu is considered a war criminal by the International Criminal Court, and that as the International Criminal Court member, that it's a signed-up signatory to and helped formulate, that it should abide by those particular rules and by those particular decisions. So it is hopeful that if there is a need, we will be able to get that arrest if he was to come to the UK. These are all particularly important issues because it does mean that Netanyahu's net of where he is able to go and what he's able to do is also closed off. We will come back as well to the issues that happened in Southport. Of course, the tragic and disgusting killings that took place of the 3 young children in Southport, and effectively the stabbing of a number of different heroes, I would say, that tried to stop this particular event from happening and this tragic incident from happening. It has led to a number of outpouring of support, both from the Muslim community and from other communities all over. But it's also led to the formulation of hate and misguided anger. Some would say it was just looking for an opportunity and a chance, and the far right, again, without having confirmed anything, have gone out and created those particular acts of violence against a number of different people. We've seen all of that. But we will be back discussing how that actually has a subtext to the demonstration that we're looking at in London and across the country, because it does play into it. People are still brave enough to come out and actually fight for what they think is right and say what they think is right. And so there is a lot of commendations for those particular people that are still going out and demonstrating with knowing that this is in the background as well. So we're going to go to a quick break, and we will be back, hopefully to get more views from Chris Banbury on the ground. Thank you.
Muslims, we are, by definition, hard-working people.
Catherine Ergang takes us on an unforgettable journey through a sun-kissed resort town of Alanya in Turkey's southern coast, where she immerses herself in its warmth and beauty.
Muslims, we are, by definition, hard-working people.
by building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built on that masjid. The Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, Ayodhya, where BJP lost and
they
lost badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act, which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.
China is doing to Uyghurs, they're calling them terrorists. What Israel is doing to Palestinians, calling them terrorists. What India is doing to Kashmiris, calling them terrorists. What did Burma did to Rohingya people? Call them terrorists. I am very hopeful. I don't think Muslim Ummah is in turmoil. Muslim Ummah is in a struggle for freedom, justice and Islam. It's a positive struggle.
Welcome to the Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel. The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our Ummah beautiful.
Join us Monday to Thursday here on Islam Channel.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this special edition of the news on Islam Channel. We are today live at the Palestine demonstration, and of course this is the 17th demonstration that has been taking place since the October 7th attacks and then the subsequent bombing that has been taking place. We are going to go straight to Chris Banbury, who's on the ground, and he's going to be able to give us more information as to what's going on and taking more interviews. Hello, Chris. Chris, can you hear us?
Welcome back to the demonstration here in central London. I'm sorry we had some technical issues there. We're now marching down the Strand, and I've got a sister here who's come all the way from Bradford. What brings you to London today?
Well, what I think is important to show that there's an absolute revulsion at what's happening in Palestine against the Palestinians and is supported by the UK and the US governments. It's a travesty. It's basically against British and American interests. We need to, I think, understand what the pertinent issue is here, and that issue is that one of Israeli lobbies in the UK.
Now, we're 4 months into a new government, Sir Keir Starmer. What's your rating of how that government's performed so far?
I had no hope of Keir Starmer. I think that we're going to be in for some very difficult times ahead, and I think those who voted Labour should understand that they voted for this. Keir Starmer works for Israel, is an Israeli shield. He's Israel first, not Britain first. I have no expectation from Keir Starmer. And I think that basically what we need to do is actually mobilise and understand that Keir Starmer will actually be worse than probably Rishi Sunak. They will make overtures in terms of supporting a Palestinian state. They'll amount to nothing. The thing that is on Palestinian land is very simple. You know, these are people who came from outside, who don't belong to the land, who are not Semitic people, and need to go back home. It's Palestinian land, and we need to end. Support for Israeli terrorism needs to end.
No, we've seen mosques in Southport, Sunderland, Hartlepool. How worried are you about this?
I think what I'm concerned about, actually, is something quite different, because I think these are the symptoms of basically the lobby groups. These far-right groups are not organic. You know, they are grievances within the white community, and those grievances are being used by these groups, and they're usually funded by the likes of, for example, Tommy Robinson was funded by the Robert Shillman, who was Friends of the IDF, an Israeli lobby group, who are distracting, using. You know, the problem is the fact that the problem is the Israeli lobby groups, and people need to understand one thing, and I want to make sure this is very clear. People are going to call for new laws. What we need is the opposite. We need free speech in this country, so people are not locked up. Minor infringements, or basically for things they say or things they do that are not violent. And this will be used as a pretext to clamp down on free speech and any criticism of Israel. So I would be very loath to support any new laws.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That was a view from Bradford. As you can see, we're now passing the Ritz, one of London's most poshest hotels, and we're coming, as I say, down the Strand. We'll be hitting Trafalgar Square, centre of the old British Empire, and then marching down Whitehall to the centre of political power in Britain. Let's go over here and ask this gentleman. So, can I ask you, Islam Channel, where are you come from today?
Canary Wharf.
And where are you from originally, can I ask?
Bangladesh.
And what makes you, what brings you to this demonstration? What motivates you?
We're demanding a ceasefire, so we want to end the war and stop arms supplies to Israel. Well, that's the popular demand here, and I'm of that.
And in your area, how strong is the feeling for Palestine?
In my area, in Tower Hamlets?
Yes.
Well, Tower Hamlets is very strongly in favour. So, yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So, Tower Hamlets with a big contingent concentration. We're just here in one of the Bangladeshi residents of Tower Hamlets. Big concentration of Bangladeshi people there. Let's see if we can catch up with some more people on the demonstration. Sir, can I ask you, Islam child? No? Okay. And we're going to try and catch up with some more people as we keep coming down here. Give me. So no, the numbers are looking very good here today again. I mean, this is the 17th time we've been on a demonstration. Large numbers still coming out. So it's a good performance today. And I think it shows there's a lot of concern that this new government hasn't brought a change of policy in Whitehall. That we're not seeing any fundamental change. Starmer has restored funding to UNRWA, and it has said the new government will abide by the International Criminal Court's injunctions against Netanyahu and Yves Gallant. But Britain is still selling arms to Israel, and that has to stop. So we'll see how, and that's one of the demands that's been made. Wasif, so it's a great time here today to come down. And let's see if we can talk to someone else here. Let's see if this way. Sister, Islam channel, can I? No? I'm gonna try. No? Okay, let's see if. We seem to have got some shy demonstrators. So, a bit bashful about this. So it's interesting to hear the French MP. It comes a very worrying.
There we saw Chris Bambury trying to get some more views and opinions on the street. Again, people very passionate about what exactly they are there for. From different areas of the country. Again, it's a national demonstration, so we saw people there from Bradford, from Tower Hamlets, from a number of different areas in that, from around the country. The feeling is still the same, and people are not. I suppose one of the things that's really interesting is that people are not stupid now. People actually understand what is going on. People understand that there is more than what is just being presented to them as the first picture that's being presented. There is something behind it. If you have an organization which is demonstrating in a coordinated manner, there is money, there is funding, there is something behind that that is allowing it to do so. And the lady picked up on the point in relation to lobby groups. We know how in America, AIPAC has been spending millions of dollars in relation to campaigning both for the Republicans and for the Democrats to ensure that the policies that they both maintain and retain are Israel friendly. In the UK, we have organisations such as the UK Lawyers for Israel. You have the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. You have a number of different organisations that do continue to lobby and show tacit, implicit support for the State of Israel over and above a number of other issues that may arise. And then, of course, it's the funding of those particular organisations, and then the funding of even MPs. We do know that there have been funds that have been received from a number of organisations as part of political campaigning as well. All of that means that there is a reason for holding an opinion, and the opinion that you hold usually is going to be in favour of the person that has given you that funding. There is, as much as you are free to have the opinion and choice that you want, it is on the basis that that is how political funding works. These are lobby groups. They have an agenda and they put those particular agendas forward. So it was a very interesting point that was brought up by the lady, but showed, like I said, there's more to this than just simply demonstrating on the fact that we think it's going to be one set of people that are going to make the change. It has to be across the board. It has to be the people that you see, but also the people that you don't see. And it's really that what is important as well in understanding and finding out how and in what ways politics works, because as with everything else, money is what makes the world go round. we will be back after these short messages. We're going to take a short break. We will be back and we will be discussing matters again with Chris Bambury. We're going to hopefully get him to be able to speak to us as well. But more than anything else, we're going to ensure that Chris is taking those opinions on the ground, again, at a very strange and heightened time. So it will be Chris Bambury on the ground talking to demonstrators that have come from across the country on this national demonstration, on this march. And hopefully we've already had some really interesting opinions from a number of different people that have been in charge of the march. So we know that he's already spoken to to Kate Hudson, Ismail Patel, Friends of Al-Aqsa, John Rees, Stop the War Coalition. So all of these particular people have already given their opinions and views, and we're going to get more of them. So join us again after the break.
This Adhan is brought to you by Orphans in Need, bringing hope for a better tomorrow.
عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إذا سمعتم النداء فقولوا مثل ما يقول المؤذن.
On the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whenever you hear the
والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
O Allah, owner of this perfect call and owner of this prayer to be performed, bestow upon Muhammad al-Wasila and al-Fadila, and send him upon a praised platform which you have promised him. Verily, you never fail in your promise.
This Adhan is brought to you by Orphans in Need, bringing hope for a better tomorrow.
That is taking place as a national demonstration, and it's continuing to have momentum. We're still getting hundreds of thousands of people on the streets because they can see what is happening in Palestine and why it is the case that where there is such an injustice that is taking place against the Palestinian population, that there is a need for a voice to be heard. And I think that this is an important point. We have seen the death and we have seen the destruction so often in relation to our TV screens, the horrific images, but why are we seeing them? It's because somewhere down the line someone has justified the fact that we can see them. We're going to, like I said, go to Chris to take those opinions, to give a human voice to some of these particular points. So Chris, are you there? Chris? Yeah.
Welcome back. Now, I'm here with a gentleman who's carrying a Palestinian flag and an Algerian flag. There's some similarities, isn't there, between what Algeria experienced and what Palestine has experienced?
First of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you. Many people don't know that many people in Gaza are descended from Algeria. And during the Crusade War, so many Algerians left their life in Palestine. So therefore, we got so many people originally from Algeria living in Gaza. And the only reason I got the Algerian and the Palestinian flag is to show that Algeria, people and government, are with Palestine. And we got a famous saying on the last president, the one who passed away, Huwaib al-Muddin, مع فلسطين ظالمة ومظلومة. It means we are with Palestine, with the oppressed. So that's why we are here to show our solidarity. And I always, whenever I come here, I got the Algerian and the Palestinian flag, just to show that Algerian people are always with Palestine, no matter what's the case.
Algeria itself experienced colonial settler state.
Exactly. We lost, well, the French authority said that we lost 1.5 million, but according to the latest figure, it's nearly 7 million people lost their life, because during the revolution, only 7.5 years, we lost that amount of people. But originally, it's during the Emir Abdul Qadir, during 1853 till 1962, nearly 7 million people lost their life. So we are oppressed like the Palestinian people, and that's why you always see the Algerian people are standing with the Palestinian.
And I mean, it's good to hear, because across the Muslim world, we're seeing so many Muslim countries who've stayed and Arab countries who've stayed silent or done nothing to help the Palestinians.
Exactly. No, not many people know. We got a temporary seat in the United Nations, and 3 or 4 days ago, Algeria called, after the death of Ismail Haniyeh, Algeria called for an emergency meeting in United Nations. So not many people know, but the Algerian government are doing loads of work behind the scene. So,
thank you very much. It's great to hear that report from Algeria.
Welcome. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a review. So we're coming down now to Trafalgar Square. So we'll just catch our breath here. And Trafalgar Square, which we're entering, I mean, so many symbols of empire. A statue to the general who put down what the British called the Indian Mutiny, a huge rebellion in the mid-19th century against British colonial rule in India. He's celebrated here in Trafalgar Square, and so many symbols of empire. South Africa House, now of course a free democratic South Africa. But we can remember back in the 1970s, 1980s, the likes of Jeremy Corbyn being arrested at a demonstration outside the headquarters of the apartheid regime in central London. You know, again, the similarities between what went on in South Africa under apartheid and what is happening in Palestine speaks today. And there's an explanation of why it is that South Africa has taken up the issue so hard. Hi, where have you come from today?
Oh, well, I live in London, but I'm a Malaysian.
You're from Malaysia?
Yes.
What's the feeling like in Malaysia in regards to Palestine?
You know, of course, Malaysia supports Palestine, but the kind of marches that we have here, I don't think any country, well, I wouldn't say any country, but Malaysia doesn't have this kind of numbers, you know.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Britain has been responsible for the Palestine situation. It was it fought a vicious war in Malaysia in the 1950s against it. But I mean, it's great to see that what was the old imperial power, such a turnout.
Well, this is not the imperial power. This is people power, okay? So don't equate the people with the government. Right.
No, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, so, you know, I hope I don't get deported for this.
You're not going to get deported, and we will campaign to defend you. It's great to see. Whereabouts in London are you from now?
Bethnal Green.
Bethnal Green.
How cool is that?
And it's so much support in Bethnal Green in East London for the Palestinians.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. That was great. It was great to hear a voice of solidarity from Malaysia, Algeria. These aren't tourists, these are people who live in London. I mean, how multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious London is. And it's rallying behind the Palestinian people. It wasn't always like this. I'm showing my age, but Back in the day, the Six-Day War in 1967, the majority of people in Britain supported Israel because they were fed lies that Israel was a land of socialism. The kibbutzes were making the desert bloom. Palestine had been a land without people. Now it was a land for people without land. We were fed those myths. But a lot of that, since 1967 and the Six-Day War, there's been a sea change in Britain. A majority of the population, overwhelming majority, now support a ceasefire in Palestine. An overwhelming majority of the British population reject what's going on in terms of that. So I think we've got another chance for another interview here. So let's go over here. And so we're just waiting to come down. Hi, where are you from today?
Hampton.
Hampton in southwest London.
That's right.
So, what's the feeling like in that area?
Well, I keep asking people to come with me, but I'm here again on my own.
So it's not quite like Bethnal Green or areas that we're hearing?
Well, I have no idea what Bethnal Green's like, but Hampton is not...
and what makes you come to this demonstration so regularly?
Well,
the answer here, humanity.
No, the answer is I'm anti-global capitalism, and that's what's driving the genocide in Gaza, as well as many other things, and that's my real reason.
I mean, it's interesting because we're saying when you identify it with a wider agenda, we're now saying that the United States, the UK, Germany are isolated on the world stage.
Well, they're isolated, not by everyone, unfortunately, and it's the people are maybe isolating them, but governments are sticking to their guns because they're part of the global capitalist estate.
Well, thank you for coming all the way from Hampton in southwest London. Okay. You're joining us.
Thanks.
So again, a rather more shishi part of London, that Hampton, near Hampton Court Palace. As I say, the atmosphere is probably not like that in Bethnal Green or Newham or other parts of Wembley, Ealing, other parts of London we've heard from. So we'll see how this goes. And the demonstration now we're catching up with it. As we come, passing now Canada House, the Canadian Embassy here in London. Interestingly, Canada beginning to shift away from its allegiance to the United States over this issue of Palestine. And here we are.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Where are you from?
Turkey.
Ah.
Yes.
And you're here as well?
Evet, Türkiye'de.
Thank you. So, and in a minute we're going to get a sweep. I think we're coming across this side. Ceasefire now is the slogan here. As some of us viewers are saying, the British government has now said it supports the ceasefire, but it's not doing anything to stop arms sales to Israel. Hi, where do you come from today?
I come from southeast London.
And the feeling there is around Palestine?
Oh, well, I think, as I know, people are horrified by what's going on in Gaza.
I mean, I've seen there's lots of demonstrations in Lewisham in particular and elsewhere. I mean, there seems to be broad support, Muslim, non-Muslim, black, white, broad support.
There is a broad support. I think there's a humanistic issue here. You strip away the politics. Is what going on, is it right? Or, could you be a part of that? So, for me, I think it needs to stop. And I think it needs to stop as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think people feel that as well. It's a basic humanitarian issue, but it's one of ordinary people identify with suffering, don't they?
I'd imagine so. Yeah. Look, it feels to me as if with the images we're seeing of women and kids being killed, it just needs to stop. There needs to be a way that they're able to sort this out.
Thank you very much, and it's great to hear that message from South East London. So we're now here as a group. They won't be able to talk to us because it's Saturday, it's a Sabbath, but a group of Orthodox Jews, showing that there is support in the Jewish community for the people of Palestine. So great to see them. They won't talk because it's against the rules of their religion in terms of that. So we're just picking up the pace here as we come down into Whitehall. If your camera catches us, you can see Big Ben in the distance. We're now in the centre of British political power as we march down towards Downing Street, home now to Sir Keir Starmer coming through. And I think I might be able to snatch, if I'm lucky, words with one of our speakers, Alex Laughlin, who's going to be speaking from Stop the War Coalition.
I'm stewarding.
He's stewarding well, so we'll catch up with Alex later. Right. Okay. So, as you can see, the march coming down here, picking up a bit of pace here as well. So, picking up a bit of pace. I'm glad I keep myself fit for these occasions. And as you can see, Admiralty House to our right, the former headquarters of the British Royal Navy. Back in the day, ruled the waves, no longer, of course. These days, British imperialism is at the service of the United States. Its loyal ally, some might say poodle, in terms of that. And I think that is, again, what's driving people to come out on these demonstrations. A feeling that Britain isn't acting as an independent power. It's acting once again as a tool of America. And it's full. And here we are. Where have you come from today?
Assalamu alaikum.
From where, sorry?
I come from Tunisia originally, but I've been here for 25 years.
And whereabouts are you living here?
I'm here to voice my concern about the silence in the Western world and in the UK government against the genocide and the killing of the children and the very little being done to stop the war and make peace.
I mean, we're often told by our leaders Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. But when people in Tunisia and Egypt and elsewhere attempt to get democracy, the West supports the dictators.
That is absolutely right. We live in a world of double standards. Democracy is only for certain people. The rest, they are subject to oppression, dictatorship, and as long as the interests of the West are preserved, they don't care about the rest of the human rights and all the lessons we are getting for no practical, on-the-ground difference that makes for the lives of our people.
And when you see these demonstrations, I mean, it makes an impact around the world, doesn't it? When people see that in London there is such support for the Palestinians.
We absolutely do. I mean, this is the least we can do, right? Make our voices heard. I'm not sure to what extent immediate impact it's going to have, but definitely we're not going to be silenced. We're going to express our opinions, and we're going to stand up for the rights. And sooner or later, at some point in time, history will mark that we sided on the right part of a history.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Great to hear for that. So we're getting a view of what is taking place here. We're coming now down towards the stage from the end of the march, where the rally is going to take place outside Downing Street. So I don't suppose Sir Keir Starmer is at home. He's probably at his country residence enjoying the weekend in terms of that. But this rally will be taking place in Whitehall. And the march is just, we can see now, if we look back, we can see the march coming down from Trafalgar Square. Nelson's column in the background. I mean, a Ukrainian flag flying there over one of the government buildings, which, I mean, shows again, I mean, you know, Britain has taken in refugees from Ukraine. It's providing funding to Ukraine, weapons to Ukraine, missiles to Ukraine. It's sanctioned Russia. The contrast with the attitude of Britain on Ukraine with the British government's policy on Palestine is there for everyone to see. It leads to people saying there's surely hypocrisy at the centre of British politics here. You do all this over Ukraine, but you stay silent over what is happening in Gaza. You stay silent over what happened in Palestine. You continue to arm Israel. You won't let people come here for medical treatment from Gaza. So, I mean, I think it's a reminder that there are double standards at work here in terms of politics in this country. So, this is Whitehall. You can see the stage is going to be down here, almost right outside Downing Street, right outside the security gates which protect. And I think we're going back to the studio. But Steve, can you take over now?
Chris Bambury doing a fantastic job on the ground there, just trying to get the views and opinions of so many people. What was really interesting there, I suppose, was just looking at the amount of different nationalities that were actually on display. We had an Algerian, we had a Malaysian, we had someone from Turkey, we had someone from Tunisia. And those were just people mulling together. It shows the diversity of London itself and the country itself, but also the sentiment and feeling of this doesn't involve nationalities, it involves an issue of humanity. It really is that simple. A lot of these countries have gone through different processes of imperialism. We know in Algeria the way it battled the French, and to this day there's been films and documentaries. Everyone may have seen the Battle of Algiers as a film that really kind of solidified some of those particular points and those struggles. That was back in the 60s, and now we're in, 50 years later, 60 years later, and we're at the same point in relation to some of those issues which we thought were a given. You shouldn't have a two-tier system. You shouldn't have apartheid. You shouldn't have double standards. Yet that is exactly what people were seeing and showing. A really interesting opinion as well from the gentleman from Tunisia. It was the fact that it is the double standards, and the fact that he said democracy is for some, not for others. It's almost an Animal Farm quote, isn't it? We are all free, but some are more free than others. It's effectively that idea of who has the right to determine freedom, who has the right to determine democracy, and what it means to people is very important. And I do take this back to certain decisions that were made. Remember, we had Ismail Haniyeh, who was murdered and assassinated by Israel earlier this week. He was a moderate member of Hamas itself, and Hamas, of course, is a proscribed organisation in the UK, so there cannot be any tacit support for any organisation such as that, which is understandable. But by the same token, we also have to understand that there was a political decision in which to proscribe such a group, such as Hamas. And so that political decision needs to be taken to task in relation to why it was and how it's come about as well. So what was the decisions that were before the Home Secretary when they made that decision to do so? It's quite important because it's taking away the idea of democracy itself, because people are seeing that, okay, there is an election that happens, and in an election, whoever gets the most votes should have the right to self-determine and rule. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened in the Gaza Strip in 2006, 2007, and then we had this divergence. We weren't really told why and in what ways, but that divergence took place. I suppose the question is how we are deciding that some people's democracy is good and other people's democracy is not good. That there is these issues of transparency, but we've had issues of transparency with a number of different organizations where there is dictators. There are stated dictators that are actually ruling those particular states and those particular countries. So looking at the double standards and how we are exposing them through journalism, through the law, through a number of different areas, this has been a real turning point, because it allows people to then say, that is why I am demonstrating, because I see an injustice taking place or an injustice happening. So the people on the streets today are there, like I said, from a number of different areas: Algeria, Malaysia, Turkey, Tunisia. That was just literally Chris Bambury sticking a microphone in someone's face and then finding out that effectively they were not even, they're not your traditional, let's just say, Londoners or your traditional people, but they're from all over the world that show solidarity. What was also really interesting was from one of the comments from the lady from Malaysia, who said, actually, we don't get these kind of demonstrations in Malaysia in terms of the size and the output. So that's also very important to understand as people in London and the national demonstrations that take place as to why they are so important. Yes, we've said that this is the 17th demonstration that's taken place since October 7th, and the need to understand why it's important and to show that solidarity. We don't know whether or not it will make a change or a difference in relation to government policy. We hope it will, but it is this idea that, one, we are a centre point of power in London. As much as it has its colonial past and imperial past been decimated, it still remains a permanent member of the UN Security Council. It still remains a major player in terms of its GDP and economy, even though some would say that that is failing and going down. But those particular positions of power allow you to then recognise the unrecognised. And that's probably the most important point. The fact is that the Palestinian people, in the eyes of the North, the global North and the West, have completely been ignored. They are non-human. Effectively, that is a statement that has been made by the Israeli government. The Israeli people, the Israeli government and the people in charge have been very, very clear in relation to what they think of the Palestinian people. If it's not making assertions such as those with Amalek, we forget that this was at the beginning of October, where they were effectively said, yes, you can do whatever you like because they deserve to die. Effectively, we will not give them food, we will not give them water, we will not give them any kind of amenities to be able to survive. That was stated at the outset. We then had a situation where we were also told, anything goes. Whatever you want to do, you can do. On top of that, when you've had those particular statements made, for the most powerful person in the world, the US president, to turn around and say there is no red line, that is a huge statement where you're basically giving free rein. To the point that today and this last week, we've also seen how in the Israeli courts there have been demonstrations of people coming in where the Israeli courts are actually determining whether or not it's okay to torture a person. Is it all right for me to actually torture a person? Yes, it's completely justified. That was the discussion that was taking place in the Israeli system of justice, which, again, beggars belief. This kind of idea that then is taken forward, this idea of being and non-being, this idea that I am absolutely entitled to do what I want to do to these other people because they are not human, they are not seen as human. This is the seeds of genocide. We've seen it again and again. We've seen it where we have effectively military courts, military bases being overrun by settlers on the basis that they don't want to bring to justice people who are accused of rape, of torture, of such heinous crimes that we cannot even imagine. Don't forget, we've seen and we've heard the stories of the poor Palestinian child who was with Down syndromes. That story still gets to me. As a journalist, you cannot help but be human in relation to some of the stories that you hear. And yes, you keep an impartiality, but where the evidence is so overwhelming, you need to bring it to the fore. Effectively, a child with Down syndrome being mauled to death by a dog. Where is the line? Where is it that you cannot see a point of humanity that you've crossed? Well, if the US president Joe Biden has said there is no red line. You're giving free rein to these particular issues that are coming to the fore and these particular horrors that we're seeing. We are going to get more views and opinions from Chris Banbury when he goes back to see people and when he talks to them and talks about why they are there. But this underlying issue is always there. This underlying issue is that where we are at this demonstration, it's because we are there to have a voice for the voiceless. And that is very important. We have seen on Islam Channel here how we have been able to give that voice without the filter that is often the case with a lot of other channels and a lot of other stations. We're not going to shy away from calling something genocide when we think it is genocide, and our opinions will say that. We also are very, very important to kind of understand how and in what ways that recognizing the people of Palestine is an absolutely fundamental part of understanding who we are as people ourselves. It's a reflection on your own society, because history will say what it is that you've done today is going to be a reflection of what we and our future generations see of us tomorrow. We know that in some instances, the brutality that we've seen, I mean, I have not even read of this type of brutality in my history books. In my history books, when I was looking at World War II and I was looking at what happened in places like the Holocaust and what happened in those terrible, terrible events, that was systematic. This is almost, some of the stories that we hear, it's almost pleasure being taken out of the torture and destruction of the Palestinian people. The slow deaths, the kind of killing in the, arbitrarily. The doctors that are talking about surgical strikes on children that have been killed with bullets. A bullet in the head, a bullet in the chest, completely as you would a professional marksman, an assassin. This kind of way in which people are presented with such horrors, it requires a voice to be heard, and I suppose that is one of the reasons why you have these demonstrations and you continue to have these demonstrations, because even if it's not about the ultimate stop of a ceasefire, and that doesn't get achieved just yet, it's also to let the people know that there is a voice that is being heard. And that has been noticed. The people of Gaza have come back. We know that as reporters we've had comments back to us that say, thank you for saying and putting our voice forward, because that voice has not been put forward so often. Those are some of the kind of more broader points that we've kind of had to look at as well, because there is a subtext behind everything that we've said. But of course, there is the everyday realpolitik that's taking place on the ground as well. And the realpolitik on the ground is what are states like the United States going to continue to do? What is the change in policy and direction with people like Kamala Harris if she was to be able to retain power for the Democrats? And of course, what would happen with Donald Trump? I mean, some people say that at least with Donald Trump, we know exactly what we're going to get, and we can see that maybe he will look at this more as a business issue, and he will want to stop this because it doesn't make good business sense. But then war is always good for business, and so we need to consider that particular point as well. And of course, we also are very much aware this week of the realpolitik of what is going on in the UK in relation to the rise of the coordinated far right, taking demonstrations, in almost 35 demonstrations that have taken place in Blackpool, Wrexham, Dover, Southport, all of those particular areas where Labour has actually lost votes. So this idea of a supermajority, yes, the seats are there right now, but the actual feeling of the majority of the people has not necessarily gone along with what those seats have translated to. And we've seen how they have done that. So we're going to shortly be going to a break. And once we go to that break, we will come back and we will try and get Chris Banbury back on the demonstration. And we will get some more views and opinions on this very important 17th national demonstration for Palestine.
The views and rights lost by building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built in this. The Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, the Ayodhya, where BJP lost and
they
lost badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act, which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
China is doing to Uyghurs, they're calling them terrorists. What Israel is doing to Palestinians, calling them terrorists. What India is doing to Kashmiris, calling them terrorists. What did Burma did to Rohingya people? Call them terrorists. I am very hopeful. I don't think Muslim Ummah is in turmoil. Muslim Ummah is in a struggle for freedom, justice and Islam. It's a positive struggle.
Welcome to The Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel. The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.
Muslims, we are, by definition, hard-working people.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful. Join us Monday to Thursday here on Islam Channel.
By building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built in the Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, the Ayodhya. Where BJP lost and
they
lost badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act, which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
China is doing to Uyghurs, they're calling them terrorists. What Israel is doing to Palestinians, calling them terrorists. What India is doing to Kashmiris, calling them terrorists. What did Burma did to Rohingya people? Call them terrorists. I am very hopeful. I don't think Muslim Ummah is in turmoil. Muslim Ummah is in a struggle for freedom, justice and Islam. It's a positive struggle.
Welcome to The Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
By building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built in the Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, the Ayodhya. Where BJP lost and
they
lost badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act, which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel. The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful. Join us Monday to Thursday here on Islam Channel.
say that they are Palestinians, that their cause is just, and that they will win. They tell their story, which is the story of a people unbowed in resistance to over a century of settler colonialism. We, the global solidarity movement, take strength from the heroic steadfastness of Palestinian prisoners. Prisoners know, and we all must never forget, that every wall will fall, that every apartheid law will be overturned, and that every vestige of empire will crumble. We are moving closer and closer to the day of liberation. And when that day comes, it will be a victory not just for this movement, but for every movement that fights for human rights, for peace, and for dignity across the world. The day that Palestine is free will be the day that everyone is free. Because from the cells of every jail to the tents of every refugee camp, the Palestinian people fight for every single one of us. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. And from the sea to the river. Our first speaker on today's demonstration is the MP for Poplar and Limehouse. Please give a very warm welcome to a great friend of Palestine, Afsana Begum.
It's now 300 days into the war in Gaza. Civilians are still constantly under relocation orders from areas previously deemed safe, with insufficient time to evacuate. Attacks on aid agencies are continuing to hamper humanitarian efforts. We're also seeing the intensifying of aerial bombardment continue. And the past week's development mark the risk of dangerous escalation. Yet all around the world, people are still showing up in recognition that we are all connected by our humanity. Humanity and hope in defiance of the scale of the atrocities that we are continuing to witness in real time. We therefore stand here again today to loudly and clearly continue to call for an immediate and lasting ceasefire. But more than this, we call for the recognition of the state of Palestine. Because the dispossession and oppression of Palestinians must end. I am proud to represent an East London constituency that has demonstrated time and time again that we will continue to stand together against injustices. Where the Jewish community and allies opposed fascists at the Battle of Cable Street in 1936. Where the Bangladeshi community led the anti-fascist mobilization in the wake of the murder of Al-Tabali in 1978. Where communities came together in mass demonstrations against the Iraq war and in the anti-war mobilization in 2003 when I was just a teenager. And where we continue to see diversity as a strength, and where communities include migrants from all around the world. Growing up in these traditions of solidarity in East London taught me that hardship can be overcome, and they can be overcome collectively. They teach us that our struggles for freedom are connected with struggles against oppression everywhere. So it does feel important today as I speak to also recognize the horrors of what is happening in Bangladesh, where large numbers of students have been killed or brutally injured protesting against the government's quota system. Bangladeshi people must have their right to exercise fundamental human rights, including the right to protest. So from London, let's also send a message of solidarity with Bangladeshi people facing repression. And let's continue to stand up for ourselves, for each other, for our diverse communities across the UK, and for the men, women, and children of Gaza and all those facing oppression all around the world. Solidarity.
Thank you, Absana. Now, Absana was talking about the anti-fascist movement in Britain. Who here was inspired by the recent defeat of the far right in the French elections? And so I would like you to give a warm welcome to our international guest today, Deputy of the French National Assembly. With his translator, Stéphane, please welcome from La France Insoumise, part of the massive coalition that put back the far right, Jérôme Legave.
Chers amis, je suis un député du Parlement français, militant du Parti ouvrier indépendant et de la France insoumise. Je suis honoré et fier de prendre la parole à cet événement. Les grandes manifestations qui ont eu lieu dans votre pays depuis des mois ont été une forte source d'inspiration et de soutien pour les Français.
Dear friends, I am a deputy of the French Parliament, member of the Independent Workers' Party and of La France Insoumise. I am honored and proud to speak at this event. The large demonstrations that have taken place in your country for months have been a strong source of inspiration and support for the French people.
Depuis 9 mois, le génocide du peuple palestinien se déroule sous nos yeux. Une véritable barbarie organisée par Netanyahou. Biden aux États-Unis, Macron en France, Scholz en Allemagne, Sunak et aujourd'hui Starmer en Angleterre sont complices. Et nous n'oublions pas la responsabilité des gouvernements des pays arabes au Moyen-Orient.
For 9 months, the genocide of the Palestinians has been unfolded before our eyes. This is a true barbarity orchestrated by Netanyahu with the complicity and military aid of Biden in the United States, Macron in France, Scholz in Germany, Sunak and now Starmer in Great Britain, without forgetting the responsibility of the governments of the Arab countries in the Middle East.
Il y a quelques jours, juste avant l'ouverture des Jeux Olympiques, Macron a accueilli le président d'Israël, celui qui a signé les bombes qui massacrent les enfants de Gaza. Macron continue d'envoyer des armes à Israël. Il continue, comme beaucoup d'autres, sa campagne de diffamation, de calomnie, en nous accusant honteusement d'antisémitisme pour essayer de nous faire taire. Nous ne nous tairons pas quand un génocide a lieu, quand une opération de nettoyage ethnique a lieu. On ne regarde pas ailleurs. On se bat pour le cessez-le-feu. Arrêtez de fournir des armes à Israël. Levez le blocus, maintenant.
A few before the opening of the Olympic Games, Emmanuel Macron welcomed the President of Israel, the one who signed the bombs that shred the children of Gaza. Macron continues to send weapons to Israel. He continues, like many others, his disgusting campaign of defamation and slander by shamefully accusing us of anti-Semitism to try to silence us. Not be silent. When a genocide takes place, when a methodical operation of ethnic cleansing takes place, we don't look the other way. We fight for the ceasefire. Stop providing arms to Israel. Lift the blockade now.
En tant que député français et syndicaliste, je me dois des opprimés, des enfants massacrés, pour arrêter le carnage, débarrasser le monde des oppresseurs, des faiseurs de guerre, qui préparent et alimentent les guerres partout dans le monde, comme on le voit en Ukraine, qui augmentent les budgets militaires et réduisent ceux des hôpitaux, des écoles, des services publics et des besoins des populations.
As a member of the French Parliament and as a trade unionist, it is my duty to stand by you, to stand by the oppressed, to stand by the slaughtered children, to stop the carnage and rid the world of the oppressors and the warmongers who prepare and support wars all over the world, as we see in Ukraine, by increasing military budgets to the detriment of hospitals, schools, public services, and people's needs.
Ce n'est pas quand la guerre tue, quand elle blesse des centaines et des milliers de personnes par jour. Ce n'est pas quand les libertés sont supprimées par la censure et la loi martiale que nous pouvons combattre la guerre. C'est avant, c'est maintenant, quand nous pouvons encore nous organiser et manifester partout, pour toujours. Soyons solidaires.
It's not when war kills and wounds hundreds and thousands a day, when freedoms are suppressed by censorship and martial law, then we can fight war. It's before, when we can still organize and demonstrate. Everywhere, forever, stand together.
Once again, give it up for Jerome and the international community. Together, we will defeat fascism and we will liberate Palestine. In our thousands, in our millions. 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 Our next speaker is here representing the Palestine Forum in Britain, one of the co-organisers of today's protest. So please give a warm welcome to Lejane Abdullah.
I wrote a list of promises to you, Palestine. I promise to be a guardian of your legacy and teach the young the art of life, the way you taught our ancestors. I promise to always wear my kufiya, fits my armor and my identity. Let everyone know me by these patterns. If they ask about bravery, I promise you to tell them about Gaza's children who play in rubble, their laughter, defiance, their innocence, our strength. If they ask about justice, I promise to tell them about your faith, that the truth will always rise like the sun in the face of oppression's darkest hour. If they ask about cowards, I promise to point at every silent leader in power. If a targeted bullet silences one, I promise you its echoes awaken 1,000 more. I promise you our voices will pierce through history's pages as we weave our path to liberation in the red ink of Palestinian struggle. I promise you we will guide the oppressed home from Sudan to Congo to Palestine. I promise you, I will not let them water down the atrocities of this genocide and tell me to swallow the realities of an ethnic cleansing. I promise you, I'd rather choke than accept the world's inhumanity. I promise you to always fight for the truth. I promise you, for every tear shed, we rise stronger. For every life lost, our resolve grows deeper. And so, Palestine, I promise to look for you in every corner of my day, in every star of these clouded skies, and pray that these rockets turn into shooting stars and rain humanity down on us. And may the rest of the world stand a witness to my promises that we are the revolution, we are the resistance. Our existence is our resistance. And so I will build my resistance in every moment of my existence. Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! And now because we're outside Downing Street, I want you to send a message to the Prime Minister. Stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel! I want to hear it louder and I want to see your flags and your signs in the air. I said, stop Israel. Now, our next speaker is from an organisation sending just that message to this new government. One of the organisations that helped call today's demonstration, the chair of the Stop the War Coalition, Alex Kenny.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to everyone for being here yet again. For 10 months now, we have been protesting on the streets against Israel's war on Gaza. It's a war that has destroyed every city in Gaza. 70% of homes destroyed, 80% of schools, 90% of hospitals, and 100% of universities, in addition to 40,000 dead. And that is a destruction that is being carried out with weapons and with arms supplied by our government. And that's why Shelley wants you to say, stop arming Israel. That has left Netanyahu and Israel exposed and isolated, but increasingly desperate. And that is why this week he has brought the war to Lebanon and Iran, because he wants to provoke a wider war in the Middle East, and he wants to drag the UK and the US into that war. And that's why today we've added a new slogan. No wider war, no Middle East war. We have to protest against that escalation. The final point I want to address today is about the violence and the protests we've seen in various parts of our country this week. It's the physical, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It is the physical manifestation of an Islamophobia that we've warned about for years, and that we have seen and heard from our politicians and our mainstream media. And we have to say that clear. We have to say that clear. There is no room for Islamophobia here. So we have a responsibility here to build this movement in support of Palestine, but to unite with the movement against Islamophobia and against racism. No racism, no Islamophobia. Unity is the way forward. So I want to finish with one of the chants, and I hope you'll join me, with one of the chants that I really like on this demonstrations. It's a chant that shows our determination. It's a chant that says, we know why we're here, and it's a chant that says we're not going away. 1, we are the people. 2, we won't be silenced. 3, stop the killing, now, 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 now. Thank you very much.
Free, 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 from the river to the sea, from the river to the sea, and from the sea to the river. Our next speaker will act as a member of the White Kite Collective, who will say a few words, I think, introducing themselves. But please make some noise for actor Zainab Hassan.
We are White Kite Collective. We are a grassroots group of cultural workers standing in support of the Palestinian people as they confront genocide. And as a Palestinian member, the collective has said at a previous event of ours, the battlefront for the freedom of Palestinians is not just in the land of Palestine, but it is also here. Making the case for Palestinians in the UK in every sphere is vital, and this includes the cultural sphere, because culture plays a huge part in how Palestine is received and understood, and in some cases it is where people begin their journey of solidarity. Our events take place mainly in cultural spaces, and whilst there is still much to be done in shifting the self-imposed and harmful silence and complicity of the cultural landscape in this country, we vow to push on. We know that under the last government, DCMS met with the Arts Council to discuss Palestine. We know Arts Council England cautioned organisations against overtly political work. We vow to push on despite the culture of censorship creates, which threatens our freedom of speech and the very backbone of our creative lives. We vow to push on despite all of the threats to dox or blacklist us, because we refuse to stay silent in this genocide that is being live streamed before our very eyes. We vow to push on as we believe in the importance of bearing witness as a mark of respect, because Palestinians are not just numbers. We vow to push on because every single testimony, poem and song is evidence. We vow to push on because we believe that art and storytelling has the power to connect with hearts and minds and shift the narrative that is so often skewed in the mainstream. And we vow to push on until we see a liberated and free Palestine. I'm going to read very quickly a testimony from Ibrahim al-Ghulla from Gaza. And Ibrahim said, I don't want to end up in a bag. Everything is negotiable except my death. I want a full shroud, 170 centimeters long. I don't give up any part of my body. I want it whole. I want my arms, my feet, my heart, my head, my 20 fingers and my eyes too. I want to return to the womb of the earth as I was created from it. The same earth here in this country. I don't mind if I'm buried in a mass grave, but I want my name on the tombstone, my age as well, and that I am from here, from this slaughtered homeland. And I would like, with a bitter plea, for my grave to be in a cemetery, not a street, not a sidewalk, nothing else, as our last wish and our right. Farewell. Hours after Ibrahim al-Ghulla posted this on Facebook, Ibrahim, his wife, and his 5-month-old baby girl were killed. Shame. Free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine.
Thank you, Zainab. Free, 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 free. Our next speaker is here representing the Muslim Association of Britain, one of the co-organisers of today's march. Please give a warm welcome to Mustafa Daberg.
Thank you. I think before I start, just want to pay testament to each and every single one of you here today, showing those far-right, violent thugs how peaceful protest is done in this country. 300 days have gone past and the world has witnessed a genocide unfold. In Gaza, 40,000 Palestinians and more have been killed. Children, women, the elderly, journalists, doctors, nurses, hospitals, and schools have all been deemed legitimate targets by the genocidal Israeli regime. This is not a conflict. This is a massacre, an atrocity, and a crime against humanity. This is a genocide. For months, we have marched through the streets calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. For months, we were ignored, dismissed. We were told that Israel had the right to defend itself, that Israel had the right to cut off food, water, fuel, and electricity to millions of people. We were called hate marchers, we were demonized, we were ridiculed. But look at us now! Our movement has grown stronger by the day. We are more determined. We are more resilient. And thanks to each and every single one of you, our government has started to shift its position. They are now heeding our calls for a ceasefire, albeit too little, too late. They have dropped their objections to the International Criminal Court's application for arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant for war crimes. These are positive steps, but it is not enough. We must carry on. The International Court of Justice has spoken, and the UK must comply with international law. It must enact a full and immediate arms embargo on Israel. Our government must take this crucial step and stand on the right side of history. Our fight is not over until this genocide ends. We are the voice of the voiceless, the strength for the weak, the hope for the hopeless. We will not be silenced. We will not be stopped. Let us keep this spirit of resistance alive until we have justice and until those who have committed the most heinous crimes against humanity are held to account. Thank you very much.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Now, it is my huge honour to bring you our first numbers estimate for this demonstration. We've just had word that the very back of the demo is still just by Piccadilly Circus, which means we have got at least 100,000 people here on the streets of London with us today. 100,000 people calling for an end to arms sales to Israel, for an end to British complicity in 300 days of ongoing genocide. It is also my huge pleasure to bring you a short message from the People's Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn, who can't be here with us on this demonstration today. He says, "My apologies for not being at today's march. I am at long-arranged events in Ireland. 40,000 lives lost, international legal judgments against Israel, an arrest warrant against Netanyahu, and millions around the world protesting in support of Palestine." How much more incentive do President Biden and Prime Minister Starmer need to halt arms supplies to Israel? Our march and our voice is one for peace
against racism and against division. We represent hope and we will never go away. Solidarity with each and every one of you, Jeremy Corbyn. Our next speaker is here today representing the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament and one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please give a very, very warm welcome to Kate Hudson.
Thank you very much. Friends, this week, our new Foreign and Defence Secretaries, Lammy and Healy, have been on tour in the Middle East. They claim their message has been, quote, to stress the urgent need for de-escalation. And it's reported that when Healy met Yoav Gallant in Tel Aviv yesterday, he called for an immediate ceasefire. So how is it that on X, Gallant thanked Healy for his commitment to the UK-Israel relationship and said they had discussed the importance of defence ties between the UK and Israel? Friends, how can Lammy and Healy possibly be serious about calling for a ceasefire when this new British government continues to send arms to Israel? Surely, friends, if you want to stop the killing, you stop sending the weapons to the killers. The truth is, while the British government continues to arm Israel, any talk by them of calling for a ceasefire is just meaningless platitudes. It's hypocrisy of the worst kind, and it is utterly sickening. Because the truth is there for all to see. Yesterday, Sky News reported on the terrible conditions in Al-Mawasi, where 1.9 million Palestinians are gathered, living alongside dead bodies, garbage and raw sewage, where polio and cholera are spreading, skin diseases, rashes and terrible insect bites are rife. And there is nothing with which to treat these appalling afflictions. Life in Al-Mawasi is intolerable. And that's the reality. And the only thing that will make a difference is a ceasefire. So that is our demand today, that our government makes that happen, not by going on visits to talk to war criminals about defence ties with Israel, but by ending all political and diplomatic support for Israel, and above all, by stopping sending arms to Israel. And this is our most urgent demand to Keir Starmer over there in 10 Downing Street today. Break now with Israel's genocidal government and end this genocide. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? It has been over 300 days since the current genocide and 76 years of the occupation. And our next speaker is someone who has been fighting against apartheid for decades. He's here representing Friends of Al-Aqsa, one of the co-organisers of today's protest. So please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Ismail Patel.
Assalamu alaikum. Israel, over the past 10 months, has been deliberately and systematically carrying out the targeted killing of women and children, bombing hospitals, bombing refugee camps, targeting journalists, torturing prisoners, denying water and food to create mass starvation. Israel has violated every principle of the Human Rights Charter. Israel has a flagrant disregard for the highest court in the world, the ICC and the ICJ. Above and beyond this, Israel is continuing with its assassination of Palestinian leadership. Just to mention a few, Israel has assassinated Khalil al-Wazir, Yahya Ayyash, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, Abdulaziz Ratisi, Ismail Haniyeh. This assassination by Israel over the past decades have not silenced the Palestinians to seek freedom. Israel will not and cannot wipe away Palestinian rights to self-determination with its tyrannical assassination threats. Every time Israel assassinates a Palestinian, the world gets stronger in defense of the Palestinian rights. Today, because of our efforts, Israel is isolated. Even Japan has refused Israel to attend the Nagasaki peace ceremony. However, there remains just a handful of governments still supporting Israel's occupation and genocide. One of these governments is, of course, the UK government. Before the election, we were promised the Labour government would recognize the state of Palestine. Well, Keir Starmer has reneged on that promise. We were also promised Labour government would stop arming Israel. Well, Keir Starmer has deferred that as well. Let us join together and send a clear and a collective message. We demand an immediate ban to arms sales to Israel. We demand the recognition of Palestinian state. We demand the UK government comply with the letter and spirit of the ICC and ICJ rulings. We will not allow for the Israeli genocide to be normalized. We owe it to the next generation and say, racism is not acceptable. Genocide is not acceptable. Occupation is not acceptable. Apartheid is not acceptable. Israel and its fewer and fewer allies are being isolated. And we here continue to make sure that this ends sooner rather than later. Continue with our marching, boycotting, and lobbying. Palestine is going to be free, my friends. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Thank you very much.
Let's hear it for Ishmael and the Friends of Al-Aqsa. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Let me hear this side. I said free, free. Free, free. Let me hear this side. Free, free. Free, free. I want to hear the middle. Free, free. Free, free. Now everyone together. I said free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Now on every single one of our demonstrations, you will have seen that we have had a big Jewish bloc with Jewish people from all sorts of organizations coming together to march for Gaza. Our next speaker is from today's Jewish bloc representing a Jewish socialist group. Please give it up for Julia Bard.
Greetings from the Jewish Socialist Group and the Jewish Bloc for Palestine. We are a growing coalition of Jewish activist groups and individuals who will not stand by while Israel wreaks violence and destruction against the Palestinians. Whatever the Israeli government and our self-proclaimed Jewish community leaders say, this inhumanity is not being carried out in our name. This catastrophe has not happened in a vacuum. It is the latest genocide the world has seen, but not the only one. And the perpetrators have political and military support from their counterparts and collaborators in countries all over the world, not least our own government. We are marching in the Jewish bloc because we are anti-fascists and anti-racists. We are socialists and anarchists. We are black and we are white and we are brown. We come from different traditions and backgrounds. We are human beings who challenge Israel's genocide of the Palestinians because we have learnt from our own history that no individual, no group, no people fight persecution on its own. We have a vision of a future built on foundations of solidarity, coexistence and equality. An anti-nationalist future which doesn't carve up the world, which doesn't impose borders and build walls and then claim the right to murder those who transgress them. We are internationalist, not nationalist. Our anti-nationalism is a challenge to the fascists marauding across our country, threatening Muslims and other minorities. It's a challenge to the governments who want to stop the boat and deport migrants. And it's a challenge to Zionists who, as well as destroying the lives of Palestinians, belittle, insult and abuse Jews outside Israel. Just this week, former Israeli government spokesperson Elon Levy proudly described Israel as not your grandparents' Jews anymore. He is celebrating the memory of those millions who were persecuted and murdered by the Nazis, those who resisted and those who were unable to resist. We know from our bitter history where nationalism can lead. In 1933, Heinrich Ehrlich, a leader of our political ancestors, the Jewish Socialist Bund, described the rise of the Nazis as nationalism stripped naked. He said that in appropriate circumstances, Jewish nationalism would show its sharp teeth and nails, no less than the nationalisms of other nations. Tragically, that has come to pass, but we will not stop marching, campaigning, demanding an end to the violence, the war crimes, and the devastation. We say to our government and to all the governments fueling the genocide, stop arming Israel. We will go on marching until Palestine is free.
Free! 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 In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! And in our millions, in our billions! Our next performer is a British singer-songwriter. Please give a very warm welcome to Alexi Murdoch.
Hello. I was just asked to sing something for you. I actually think it's unbelievable that we're still at 302 days. But you are blessed. And I want to say something to the people who are not here today, who deep down in their hearts know that what is being committed goes against all humanity. And I want to say to you that if you support Israel, your support for Israel is a direct result of your miseducation on Palestine. Learn the history. It is not complicated. Occupation is evil. Apartheid is evil. Genocide is evil. We all know this. It is time to stop. When I was a boy, I walked on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. I smelled the thyme on the hills and saw the silver of the olive tree. My father. I looked out over the water, but I could not see. there on the far shore, a child just like me, yearning to be free. Here we are now, all together. Here we are now, all alone. We don't know where we are going. All the while we are going home. Remember my voice. Remember my voice. Do you remember when you were young? Do you remember when you were a child?
So you saw there a number of different speeches from a number of different people, all with the same goal, all with the same, fervour to ensure that there is a ceasefire that is taking place in Palestine. And we've talked about so many other things, but that is ultimately what we want. We just want a ceasefire to take place. And it comes from different sources. So we saw there people talking from a political point of view. So you saw Ishmael Patel from the Friends of Al-Aqsa. You saw, Lindsay German. You've also seen Kate Hudson from Campaign for a Nuclear Disarmament. The flavour of the comments and the flavour of what is being said hasn't changed from October 7th to now. It is that a ceasefire is needed, and that is what is paramount. When we look at the situation in Gaza, we also note that this is now coming in different formats. It's not just the political, as we've just said, but we've also seen artists. So we saw spaces that were being taken up by people in those particular fields, in the media and the arts, giving their voice and giving their talent to that particular issue. I'm sure that everyone is well aware of artists such as Loki, who have been quite key and fundamental to making sure that this voice is heard. And this crossover between the arts and politics is made in order to ensure that some good comes of whatever it is that they do in their everyday life. Whether it's lawyers doing something in the law, whether it's artists doing what they do as artists. But there is a power to it, and it's a single goal, which is to seek that ceasefire. We were obviously earlier able to hear a number of different voices on the march in relation to what Chris Bambury was bringing to us. So our reporter on the ground there was Chris Bambury, who is himself a very, very prominent advocate for Palestine and indeed for the left as well. So there has been a coming together of a number of different people, and one of the, I'm still surprised, but I shouldn't be, and it's because this issue of Palestine resonates so much that there were 100,000 people that are now stated to have been attending this particular march today. 100,000 people, that's 2 football stadiums, two Old Traffords, basically, of people on the streets of London from across the country, making sure that their voice of the Palestinian people is heard, that they are not forgotten, and that we know that there will be a continued resistance to what is the actions of the Israeli occupation forces from the point of view of the British people here in the UK as they show their voice on the streets of London. We will be back after these short messages, and once we come back we will be looking again at the speeches that are being undertaken, what people are saying, what new avenues that we can explore, and also getting further voices on the ground as to what exactly has been happening today. So do join us again for the next segment of this particular special live Palestine demonstration coverage from the Islam Channel News team. We will see you shortly.
By building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built on this masjid. The Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, the Ayodhya, where BJP lost and
they
lost badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act. Which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
China is doing to Uyghurs, they're calling them terrorists. What Israel is doing to Palestinians, calling them terrorists. What India is doing to Kashmiris, calling them terrorists. What did Burma did to Rohingya people? Call them terrorists. I am very hopeful. I don't think Muslim Ummah is in turmoil. Muslim Ummah is in a struggle for freedom, justice, and Islam. It's a positive struggle.
Welcome to The Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel. The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.
Muslims, we are, by definition, hard-working people.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful.
Join us Monday to Thursday here on Islam Channel.
Welcome to The Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
By building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built on the Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, the Ayodhya. Where BJP lost and
they
lost badly in this law called Citizenship Amendment Act, which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our ummah beautiful.
Join us Monday to Thursday here on Islam Channel.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this special edition of Islam Channel News. We are here today in London and we are covering the protests and the National March in London. It's the 17th March that has taken place since October 7th and we are in the middle and the midst of all of the speeches that are taking place there. We go back now to central London to hear those speeches and to keep you informed.
Palestinians, in our thousands, in our millions. Solidarity from Unison to all of you marching here today and every other day. Because it matters that we march. It matters to the Palestinians. It matters to everyone who wants to see a free Palestine. And it matters that we tell the politicians we won't stop, we won't go away. Last time I stood on a platform here in Whitehall, as Rafah was being bombed, we had a Tory government, a government full of bigots, a government representing their friends in the city and their friends, the arms dealers. The government may have changed, but our demands haven't. So we demand of Keir Starmer an immediate permanent ceasefire now. Stop the sale of arms to Israel and recognise the Palestinian state. And he needs to hear us now in Downing Street. To win. And I'm here as a trade unionist and a socialist. And we call for boycott, divestment and sanctions. We don't want our services or our pensions to be funded by the dirty money from war and occupation. We want ethical investment from the top to bottom of government and the public sector. And we've had some wins recently as well. We're seeing some councils divesting our pensions. And of course, the fantastic student encampments have seen colleges like Trinity and just this week King's College agreeing to divest. Our movement, when we organise, we can win. And finally, one more reason it matters that we stay on the streets and we make sure that they're our streets. Because last Saturday, about 15,000 people marched with Nazi Tommy Robinson. He stood in Trafalgar Square up there and he said, this is a quote from him, "Look around you, not a single Palestinian flag in sight. This is the London we want." And actually today, up and down the country, anti-racists are marching against the Nazis and the far right. And as I look out over Whitehall today, across a sea of Palestinian flags, I look at the London we want. I look at a London that stands up to racism, that stands up to injustice, and stands up for peace and freedom around the world. Solidarity to you all. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
From the river to the sea. 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 Our next speaker is a journalist with Al Jazeera. She's also a member of Media Workers for Palestine, and she is representing the London freelance branch of the National Union of Journalists. So please give a warm welcome to Mariam El-Sayeh.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I apologize to our colleagues in Gaza because this is so late to have a speaker from our branch or from our union to speak in the National March after 7 months of killing like never before. There is always a question why Palestinian journalists are not equal. We didn't witness a proper condemnation of the most significant attack on the journalist. The death toll of the Palestinian journalist is the highest in all the modern history. And now, none of the leaders formally condemn. The Western leaders united in solidarity with journalists from Charles Hebdo attack. All of them assembled to them. Nothing happened to our Palestinian colleagues and journalists. The White House who screamed in the world, the beheaded fake story babies, when the babies were when the story were fake. Where is the White House now when our colleague Ismail al-Ghul head exploded? Where is the White House? Where is our new government? We are unionists. We are the most representative in these people of taxpayers. May we question the government about our money if it's used in arming, targeting our journalists in Gaza, if our money is used in technologies to target and assassinate journalists in Gaza. Our new government, it's time. We are here to ask you because it's time to investigate to which degree the former government were complicit in killing the journalists and targeting them. We shouldn't be helping the Israelis to target civilians or journalists. Now, here in front of the 10 Downing Street, I urge Keir Starmer now, not tomorrow, to keep his word before the elections. He promised to immediately recognize Palestine. Yet he didn't. And I'm telling 10 Downing Street, Great Britain shouldn't be waiting a permission from the White House to recognize Palestine or not. The IDF thinking that killing a journalist is silencing them. No, you need to change your strategies. We do not fear bullets. In Palestine, we don't like the war, but if there is a call for the war, we are going to be in the front line. Finally, to Netanyahu, you may have succeeded to kill over 160 of our colleagues, but you will never kill the idea of resistance and dedication. Netanyahu, you beheaded Ismail al-Ghul, our friend, and over 160 journalists to silence them. We are here to be Gaza journalist megaphones forever. Thank you very much.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! And a message to number 10. Stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel! I said stop arming Israel! And our next message direct to the lady. She's a pro-Palestine voice on Labour's National Executive Council. Please give it up for Jess Bernard.
Solidarity London to the far-right racist thugs and the likes of the fascist Tommy Robinson, who have torn apart communities this week, attacked mosques, harassed our Muslim brothers and sisters, targeted refugees and migrants, and threatened to attack our solidarity marches with Palestine. We have a message for them. We will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced. You will not divide us. And we will stand against Islamophobia, and we will stand for Palestine. We are the many, they are the few, and London, we will win. To the politicians and the media who have whipped up fear and against migrants, against refugees, and against our marches that we all know have stood for peace and solidarity for Palestine, I say to them, shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. We will not forget that while bombs rained down on the children of Gaza, you turned a blind eye to the crimes of Israel and you demonized those of us demanding peace. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. For months, we have been turning out for the people of Gaza. Over 300 days, Palestinians have faced bombardment, displacement, starvation, and crimes against humanity. And throughout these months, we have been calling on, demanding parliamentarians end the UK complicity, end UK arms sales to Israel, to boycott, to divest, and to sanction Israel. We welcome the decision not to oppose the ICC arrest warrant of war criminal Netanyahu. And finally, the restoration of UNRWA funding, righting a wrong that should never have happened in the first place. But this is the bare minimum. This week, the head of the British Army met with the IDF, promising deepening military ties between the UK and Israel. Statements from the Foreign Secretary focus only on Israeli suffering and continues to dismiss the ongoing genocide. David Lammy, where is your humanity? We've had the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, former Vice Chair of Labour Friends of Israel, say he sees a trade deal with Israel as crucial to the future of UK growth. What I see as crucial is make sure that the UK never again is complicit in a genocide. So to the Labour front bench, when will your end? Last week I said to Keir Starmer, you claim you want Labour to be a force for good in the world. You claim Labour have returned the UK to the international stage. You're a champion of human rights. So when will you end this Labour government's complicity in war crimes, and will you end arms sales to Israel now? And London, now that Keir Starmer sits in number 10, let's be louder than ever. Back in October, when I first addressed this march, colleagues in my party told me to stop calling on our leader Keir Starmer because he's just in opposition. Well, he's not in opposition anymore, and his excuses have run out. Starmer, we don't want excuses. We don't want delay. We don't want you to say you're different from the Tories. We want you to smash the Tory legacy of complicity in Israeli war crimes. We want action. No more delay. No more excuses. Keir Starmer, you talk about the full force of the law. Well, it's time to use the full force of UK law, of international law, of human rights law to bring an end to the bombing, an end to the genocide, an end to the crimes being committed by Israel, an end to the ethnic cleansing, end to the illegal occupation, and an end to apartheid. And we will be here and we will not stop until we see peace for Palestine, justice for Palestine, and freedom for Palestine. So wave your flags high, raise your voices louder. Free, free Palestine! Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Our next performers are also members of the White Kite Collective. First up, please give a very warm welcome to Palestinian comedian Sami Abu Wachter.
Hello. This is a poem by Mu'in Bseso. Palestinian civil society have called for a day of action towards Palestinian prisoners today. So we would like to share his words. Mu'in Bseso was born in Gaza, and he's one of Palestine's most renowned poets. He was imprisoned 4 times. Each time he was imprisoned, he became more determined to seek the liberation of his people. There are over 9,000 Palestinians, including 600 children, currently held hostage in Israeli prisons, many without charge, suffering horrific torture, sexual abuse, and rape, according to the United Nations. This is a poem by Mu'in Bseso named Footsteps. Brother, if they should sharpen the sword on my neck, I would not kneel. Even if their whips lashed my bloodied mouth. If dawn is so close to coming, I shall not retreat. I will rise from the land that feeds our furious storm. Brother, if the executioner should drag me to the slaughterhouse before your eyes to make you kneel, so you might beg him to relent, I would call again. Brother, raise your proud head and watch as they murder me. Witness my executioner, sword dripping with my blood. What shall expose the murderer but our innocent bleeding? At night, their guns kidnapped him from his trench. The hero was flung into the cell's darkness, where, like a banner flutter above chains, he stayed. The chains became flaming torches, burning the ashes which coat our shining future. Now the hero lives, his footsteps ringing triumphantly within the closed walls of every prison. Thank you very much. I'm Sami Abu Warda.
Thank you. Our next performer, also from the White Kite Collective, is actor Julia Sawalha.
Hello, you beautiful, humane beings of love and light. My dad is from Jordan, and he's 91, and he witnessed the beginning of the Nakba. And I said to him a couple of weeks ago, "How are you doing, Dad?" And he said, "Never in my lifetime did I think I would see one Palestinian flag flying." He said, "Now I see millions all over the world. So raise your flags high for a free Palestine." Yes. I'm going to read you a poem by Fadwa Tukan. And my father interviewed her in the 70s, and he said she was a beautiful lady, and she was the very spirit of Palestinian resistance to the occupation of their land. The deluge and the tree. When the hurricane swirled and spread its deluge of dark evil onto the good green land, they gloated. The western skies reverberated with joyous accounts. The tree has fallen. The great trunk is smashed. The hurricane leaves no life in the tree. Had the tree fallen? Never! Not with our red streams flowing forever. Not while the wine of our torn limbs feed the thirsty roots, Arab roots, alive, tunneling deep, deep into the land. And when the tree rises up, the branches shall flourish, green and fresh in the sun. The laughter of the tree shall leaf beneath the sun, and birds shall return, undoubtedly. The birds shall return. The birds shall return. Thank you.
So much. I've spoken to quite a few people who have organised big demonstrations over the years, and this is apparently the biggest demonstration anyone can remember in August. Usually everyone's on holiday, but here we are in the streets demanding a ceasefire. You can be a number 10 or you can be anywhere, Keir Starmer, but we'll be outside demanding you stop arming Israel. We won't go away. We won't shut up. We'll be in your nightmares until we see justice. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Now, when I say stop arming Israel, I want you to respond, stop bombing Gaza. Stop arming Israel. Stop arming Israel. I said stop arming Israel. Stop arming Israel. Stop arming Israel. Stop arming Israel. Now, how about this one? Because there are thousands of us here outside number 10 Downing Street
today. 1. We are the people. 2. 3. 1. 2. 3. 1. And 2. And 3. Now. 1. And 2. And 3. 1. 2. 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Our final speaker today is the director of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Please welcome Ben Jamal.
Thank you. We will not be silenced. Friends, I want to thank you again for your solidarity. I want to thank you again for coming onto the streets of London, 100,000 strong. Now, friends, we know that we are now just over 300 days into Israel's genocide upon the people of Gaza. And on Thursday, when we passed 300 days, David Lammy, our Foreign Secretary, tweeted a call. He called for the hostages held by Hamas to be released, and he called for a ceasefire. There were things that he did not mention. He did not mention the 40,000 Palestinians slaughtered and the thousands of children in Gaza missing, presumed dead, under the rubble of their homes. He did not mention the hospitals, churches, mosques, schools and universities destroyed as Israel has laid waste to Gaza's infrastructure. And he did not mention that since the beginning of this genocide, unknown thousands of Palestinians in Gaza have been rounded up, detained, stripped and tortured. He did not mention that in the West Bank, since October, Israel has detained more than 10,000 Palestinians, mostly without charge, and he did not see fit to mention the UN report released a day before he tweeted that documented Israel's systemic abuse, torture and rape of those detainees, or if you prefer, Palestinian hostages. And friends, his call for a ceasefire was empty because it did not address the reason why 10 months later there is no ceasefire. It did not address the numerous statements by Netanyahu that Israel will not stop until it has completed the annihilation of Hamas, which means, in its terminology, the annihilation of all of Gaza. Now we know the lessons of history, the lessons of the past 76 years are clear. If you grant Israel impunity, it will do what it wants, commit any atrocity, violate any law. We all saw that reality again this week when it launched strikes on Beirut and Iran, risking a wider war, and in its killing of Ismail Haniyeh, deliberately undermining ceasefire negotiations. So Lammy says he wants an end to violence, but we know the truth that he does not address. There will be no peace. There will be no end to violence until there is an end to Israel's system of oppression, until the dismantlement of its regime of colonization, occupation and apartheid. And friends, we know too this lesson from history, that what brings an end to regimes of oppression are two things: the ongoing resistance of the oppressed people and the pressure exerted through global solidarity through the medium of boycott, sanctions and divestment. Our leaders will not end their complicit support for Israel's genocide until we force them to. Our public bodies and our companies will not stop funding Israel's oppression unless we force them to. So friends, we cannot stop our actions, and believe you me, the government and our public bodies and our corporations are feeling the pressure of this movement, of your activism. Before I came on stage, I was contacted with some breaking news. We are waiting to verify it, but we are informed that newspapers are reporting today that the government has instructed civil servants not to process any new licenses for the sale of arms to Israel until it has completed a review. Friends, if that is true, it is because of the pressure of this movement, but it is not enough. It is not enough until the government introduces a full two-way arms embargo. But friends, we have other news to share with you that you would have already seen. Last week, King's College became the first university in London to divest from companies supplying weapons to Israel. We salute the students who campaign for that victory. Last week, Walton Forest Pension Fund announced that it will divest from all complicit companies. We salute all of the activists who campaign for that victory, including the local PSC branch. And just in the last few days, Islington Council has announced that it is dropping its contract with Barclays Bank. We salute everybody who campaigned for that victory. So friends, we do not stop. Over the next few Saturdays, we want you taking action in your towns and cities. On August the 31st, we want you to take part in a divestment day of action with protests outside local councils and outside Barclays Bank. And in early September, we will soon verify the date. We want you back marching again here in London. Look on our social media for details of all of those actions. Friends, we do not stop. We cannot stop. We never stop until the occupation is ended, until apartheid is dismantled, until all of the Palestinian people from the river to the sea are finally free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. And of course, that was Ben Jamal from the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign that ended the speeches there on today's march. This was a special edition of Live from Palestine demonstration for Islam Channel News. We hope you have been informed. We hope you have been informed of what you can do and what you have seen our continuing support for the Palestinian people at this troubled time. We will be back again and we will be reporting again, and we welcome all of your comments and we welcome all of your feedback to help improve our programming. And of course, we would like to end this session with a positive thought, especially with what Ben Jamal had just given us there, that there is still divestment that is going on, there is still action that's going on in this country. We hope those stories are true and we will report on them again. Thank you very much for joining us.
By building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built on that. The Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, Ayodhya, where BJP lost and
they
lost badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act, which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
China is doing to Uyghurs, they're calling them terrorists. What Israel is doing to Palestinians, calling them terrorists. What India is doing to Kashmiris, calling them terrorists. What did Burma did to Rohingya people? Call them terrorists. I am very hopeful. I don't think Muslim Ummah is in turmoil. Muslim Ummah is in a struggle for freedom, justice, and Islam. It's a positive struggle.
Welcome to the Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel. The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.
Muslims, we are, by definition, hard-working people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are honored and pleased to have today with us Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad, the longest serving Prime Minister of Malaysia and one of our Muslim leaders across the last 50 years or so. Dr. Mahathir, welcome to Islam Channel and welcome to London.
Thank you.
We are so pleased to have you with us today. But as Muslims, we are all affected by what is happening in the Holy Land in Palestine. So it's 9 months on after the war on Gaza, and Muslim Ummah, the Muslim countries, they are hopeless, helpless. They can't do anything about it. The onslaught, genocide as described by the international courts, and nothing is being done properly. What should have been done at least?
Well, if the Muslim countries are united, at least on the Palestinian issue, they can together do something, like, for example, cutting back on the production of oil. If all the Muslim countries do that, I'm quite sure it will have some effect. Of course, there will be a price to pay, but I think it is worth it.
Where do you see things going now with what is happening in the States, the rise of the far right in Western Europe, and the election coming, and the possibility of Trump coming back? Where do you see the conflict in Palestine going on?
Well, the Israelis are able to do what they are doing now because they have the backing of the United States of America. The US supports Israel without caring whether Israel was doing something right or something against the law. They just support Israel because Israel is a creation of the West, and they feel that they have a duty to secure Israel. So even though they know what Israel is doing is against the law, carrying out genocide of the Palestinians, they are reluctant to really act and stop Israel from this genocide he was carrying out.
Are you satisfied with what Malaysia is doing for the cause of Palestine?
Well, we are a small country. We don't have any great say in affairs of the world. But to the extent that we can help, we would help. And the only thing we can do is perhaps to try and supply the Gaza people with what they need, medicine and food and all that. Unfortunately, we have no means of crossing the border to supply the food to the Palestinians, but we can join the others and try to provide relief for the Gaza Palestinian.
It took South Africa and then Colombia and then other non-Muslim countries to trigger the case, the lawsuit in the international court. Why that didn't come from Muslim countries and countries like Malaysia?
It's because we are not united. Each one of us is afraid that they may have to face action by America, for example. And because of that, they have not taken any legitimate action. But this fear of America is something that we should learn to overcome.
Is it justified?
Well, it's not justified at all, because we do have some power. For example, we produce most of the oil that is used in Europe and America also. And if we cut back on the production of oil, if one country does it, it's not going to be effective. But if all the Muslim countries were to act together, I am quite sure there will be a good reaction to stop Israel from committing this genocide.
During your premiership, you took bold action against the will of IMF, and you've seen Malaysia going through. Is it the political will that is missing with the Muslim leaders nowadays?
Yes, I think so. Malaysia, of course, has been able to act against the IMF because we have the means, we have the assets, we have a lot of savings which will support us if there should be any reaction coming from the IMF or the World Bank. We have the biggest savings among most of the developing countries in the world.
Dr. Mahathir, moving to what happened recently, just last Thursday, we have the UK local elections, like the parliamentarian elections. And Muslims for the first time came together and they made some kind of difference. We are at maybe 21 MPs. Some of them, 5 of them or 4 of them are independent, and they unseated the top leaders of the winning party. So it's not, when everybody is switching to Labour Party, some people went away from Labour Party and they lost their majority. What would be your advice to the Muslim community? I know Muslim leadership are waiting for you to hear from you, but for our wider audience, what would be your advice after this long time of academia, of political activities and economics and so on? What would be your advice to the Muslim community in UK?
Well, if Muslims have the same feeling about any issue, then they can act together. But acting on separately is what is making them less effective. But in this election, you can see that when they act together on an issue only, and they can have positive results. They can even influence the election of members of parliament.
Dr. Mahathir, you've been one of the longest serving leaders of the Muslim Ummah. During your time, maybe you didn't have the privilege of being coached to get to the position where you are, but that is 1 in a 1,000 or 1 in a million. Do you have an idea of how can we produce the leaders of tomorrow?
We find that most of the Muslim countries are unable to understand and practice on democracy, for example. There are too many contestants and they fight each other, destabilize the country. But if we are willing to say, set up only 2 political parties, then we would be much more able to elect a government. What is happening is that the electorate is broken up into small groups, and as such, they can never win sufficient number of seats to form the government. And because of that, the governments are usually very weak, if at all they manage to have coalitions, and this weakness is what is affecting Muslims' stand on many issues affecting the Muslim world.
Dr. Mahathir, as you have been successful in building, among many others, you have so many assistants and people who came before you and after you, but you have been the most prominent contributor to the well-being of Malaysia economics. Do you have some kind of recipe for that kind of development? What would be the general rules that are applicable to different situations?
Well, when I became Prime Minister, the country was quite stable, and it was stable because there was a big party that can command the support of the majority of the people. And that big party was able to win elections. And because it was big and strong, the challenges they were able to deal with challenges towards them. So the size of the party is such that it will always win in elections, and because it was strong, there is no attempt to overthrow the party and cause instability. One of the most important things about governance is that we must have a stable nation where politics is just a means to elect a government. Once the government is elected, then the government must attend to the wishes of the people and continue to get their support. And because they have strong support, they are able to keep the country stable, peaceful, and therefore able to develop and grow.
Dr. Mahathir, mashallah, may Allah give you long life and good health. You've seen so many world events. You've seen the Soviet Union, you've seen what is after that, you've seen the wars, the Vietnam War, you've seen the growth of Malaysia, civil war, and all of that. When you look back, what is your biggest impact and legacy you left? What is your main, when you look back at what you have been doing?
Well, if at all people notice it, during my time, the country was stable and able to grow and develop. And that is because the politics of democracy was understood by the people, and they did not break up into small parties. We have one big party. Of course, a lot of people feel that there is only one party governing the country ever since independence, but that contributes to stability. And stability is very important in the running of a country. Without stability, without peace, no country can develop.
So what would you say is your biggest success in running the country or in contributing to global politics?
Well, we have a multiracial population, and it is important for us to ensure that we do not forget that even minority groups can affect the result of election. They can, if they cannot win, but they can determine who would win in an election. So we have to pay attention to the wishes of all the communities. But of course, we have certain objectives, like, for example, there is the usual conflict between rich and poor people. But when this disparity between rich and poor is also based on, resulted in one race becoming poor and another race becoming rich, then the elements for conflict would be very, would threaten society. So what we try to do is to reduce the disparity in terms of wealth distribution, but we cannot change the different races. They still adhere to their own race, and we find that one race is doing very well, the other is not. So we have to make sure that we have an equitable share in the wealth of the country.
Is there anything you could have done and you regret you didn't do?
Well, what I was doing contributed towards the development of the country quite well, but I couldn't stay for too long. I was there for more than 20 years. I thought that when I stepped down, the succeeding prime ministers would continue with the policies that had enabled Malaysia to grow and develop. Unfortunately, the people who succeeded me as Prime Minister, they changed the policy and completely. They began to do things which are, well, illegal, wrong. For example, my government was concerned with the development of the people and the country. But when my successors think only of abusing the power that they have in order to enrich themselves. In other words, these were corrupt people.
If you look back, do you think the decision to let Singapore go its own way was a correct, right decision? If you have the chance to rectify things
we have no choice really, because during the time when Singapore was under British rule, they allowed into the country lots of foreigners, mostly Chinese, and by the time the Singapore joined Malaysia in the formation of the state of Malaysia, at that time Singapore was 75% Chinese, and in Malaysia we have about 26 to 30% Chinese. If you add Singapore Chinese to Malaysia, then the Chinese would dominate. We would like to think that they were all Malaysians, but the fact of race is still there, and there is this racial influence in the politics of Malaysia. If we have one race too prominent and too strong, then there will be no stability.
Dr. Mahathir, what is your general advice to our viewers? Your last words to say to our viewers and worldwide, to Muslims, youngsters, youth, what would be your words of wisdom and advice? I know millions out there are keen and eager to hear from you.
Well, we notice that Muslims all over the world are very concerned, but they are not united. Everyone wants to set up his own association to solve the problems of the Muslim. But when everyone does that, they become divided. Everybody is loyal to his own particular grouping. They are not united, and because they are not united, they are ineffective. So we find the Muslims, although we have 1.4 billion Muslims in the world, they are so much divided and fragmented that they cannot influence events in the world.
Dr. Mahathir, thank you so much. Thank you for coming again. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Every good thing comes to an end, and that's the end of our discussion with Dr. Mahathir. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Start your day right with the UK's first Muslim morning show, Salam Britain,
where we dive into the trending stories that matter to you.
Share recipes from around the globe that will ignite your senses.
Celebrate guests that are making waves.
And showcase the diversity that makes our Ummah beautiful.
Join us Monday to Thursday here on Islam Channel.
Welcome to the Muslim Bookshelf, Islam Channel's first ever book show. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to read. Reading has the power to open our eyes, open our hearts, and truly transform us.
By building the temple at the site of Babri Masjid, it has set a precedence for future temples and future claims of similar claims on this temple was built on that masjid, this temple was built on this masjid. The Faizabad constituency where this Ram Mandir is built, the Ayodhya, where BJP lost and
They
lost
lost, yeah.
badly. In this law called Citizenship Amendment Act. Which allows everybody to apply for citizenship, but not if you are a Muslim.
Pick of the Week has returned. Come and join us each week as we showcase the best highlights from our daily programming at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday on Islam Channel. The Olympic Games are here. Paris is flooded with tourists and the world is ready. 206 countries, over 10,000 athletes, millions of eyes watching. And we'll be covering all the updates right here on Islam Channel. But we're not just going to do your bog standard coverage. No, we'll be looking at it from a Muslim perspective as well. How are Muslim athletes getting on? Which countries are bagging all the medals? And will the International Olympic Committee finally announce a food-related event? Because trust me, I'm winning gold. The Olympics Roundup giving you a taste of everything Paris 2024 right from the comfort of your own home.